Okay, picture this. Every single day in China, something like 30,000 people are baptized. 30,000
Daily.
daily.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a staggering number, isn't it? And it tells you immediately something really remarkable is happening there. In China, the Middle Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. A place with such deep history.
Yeah,
And Christianity isn't exactly new there, right? It was one of the very early foreign mission fields.
exactly. But what's just head-spinning is the transformation. If you look back, say, after the Communist Revolution,
Yeah.
Christianity was, well, it was really decimated.
Yeah, the numbers were incredibly low. You're talking fewer than 1 million Protestants, maybe, in a country of over 500 million people back then. It looked like the end, almost.
It really did. A low point. And yet, fast forward just a few decades, and China becomes home to arguably the fastest growing church in the world.
And the most church planting movements anywhere globally. It's a complete reversal from almost disappearing to this explosion of faith.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
You,
Can't underestimate how quickly things can change, even when they seem totally stuck.
It's an astonishing development, truly. And that's really what we want to dive into today. We're going to try and unpack what's behind this incredible growth.
Right. Looking at some specific examples, the strategies people used,
Mm-hmm.
using the sources we have to understand how this all unfolded.
Exactly. Understanding this, well, this remarkable story.
Okay, so let's start with the historical backdrop, because
Yeah.
you really can't understand the growth without knowing the immense hardship the church faced.
Absolutely essential context. We're talking about long periods of really intense persecution, starting notably with Mao's Great Leap Forward.
Which had devastating consequences across the board.
All catastrophic. I mean, beyond the economic failure, the famine, estimates of 10 million deaths, maybe more.
Unbelievable.
And Christians were often suspect, seen as followers of a foreign religion, so they were often targeted, sent to the hardest hit rural areas.
So the impact, while maybe not fully documented, must have been severe.
Undeniably severe. And it's an early insight, perhaps. Hardship, displacement. Sometimes it scatters the seeds, pushes faith into new places, paradoxically.
Then, after that, came the Cultural Revolution. 10 years, 1966 to 76. And that sounds like it was even more brutal, more targeted.
Yeah, by all accounts, it was a comprehensive assault on anything seen as, well, bourgeois or foreign or just not conforming to Mao's ideology.
So churches destroyed, Bibles confiscated, burned.
It's hard to even imagine. Pastors publicly humiliated, families broken apart, people sent off to re-education camps for years.
The stories are harrowing. Our sources mention an encounter in '89 with two older Christian leaders. One had spent 21 years in prison.
21 years.
Yeah. And the other, he hadn't seen his wife or kids in years. The Red Guard forced a divorce, exiled him.
Just devastating personal costs.
So you've got decades of this isolation, this constant attack. You'd think that would just wipe out a religious movement entirely.
You really would. But what's so striking is the resilience, not just survival, but, well, what came next.
Because when Mao died in '76 and China slowly started opening up in the early '80s, the church wasn't very visible, right? Buildings repurposed, things like that.
Very little visible presence. And initially, there weren't obvious signs of a huge revival brewing.
Right, and that's where it gets fascinating. The World Christian Encyclopedia in 1982 estimated maybe 1.3 million Christians. And apparently a lot of people thought even that was too high.
Yeah, there was skepticism. It just didn't match what people could see on the ground,
But then, just 18 years later, the next edition comes out, year 2000, and the estimate jumps to nearly 90 million Christians.
90 million. It's almost unbelievable growth. Something huge, something transformative clearly happened in those intervening years.
It really is astonishing. And books like Tony Lambert's China's Christian Millions, which came out in '99, started trying to piece together how this costly revival, as he put it, actually unfolded.
Drawing on firsthand accounts, trying to understand the dynamics.
Okay, so let's get into some specifics to really see this in action. Our sources give us a couple of really interesting case studies of these church planting movements. The first one is in northern China, a city we're calling Beishan.
Right, and it starts in 1991 with a missionary arriving from Taiwan, and he had these 3 specific prayers.
Which were?
First, that God would do something so obviously supernatural you couldn't explain it any other way. Second, that the work started would actually last. And third, that it wouldn't all depend on him staying there.
Interesting prayers. Ambitious, even.
And it seems they were answered. In 1993, he connects with this key local leader, Pastor Sue Lam, from an unregistered church there.
And she has quite a story herself. graduated from a registered seminary, but wasn't satisfied with the outreach at her church.
Yeah, felt it was too limited. So in 1987, she just started her own church. Small at first.
But by 93, it had grown to over 1,000 members, multiple services.
Exactly. That kind of growth, even before this partnership, is pretty significant. Tells you something was already happening.
But then it gets even more interesting. December 92, her church puts on a Christmas drama, an outreach event.
And it's hugely popular. Hundreds show up every night, spilling out into the courtyard, big public gathering.
Which, of course, attracts official attention. The local mayor, the head of the Religious Affairs Bureau, the RB.
Right, the RB being the government body that oversees religious activity. Crucial players in this context.
And there's this moment where they ask C. Lamb about managing the crowds, maybe clearing seats for the officials.
And she apparently says something like, the ground is level at the foot of the cross, refuses to give them special treatment.
That's bold.
Incredibly bold. But it seems to have made an impression, maybe not the one you'd expect.
Apparently not. Because the next day, officials send people early to save front row seats, and they start attending her services for weeks, just observing.
Watching her teach?
Yeah. And then, late February, they approach her with this really surprising idea.
Because her teaching was just focused on the Bible, no politics, they basically ask her to go out into the countryside.
To disciple the rural peasants. Their stated reason was to prevent religious fanaticism, which basically meant anything challenging the state.
Right. Keep things orderly from their perspective.
C. Lamb initially says, no, she's too busy with her city church.
Understandable.
But they persist. And it becomes clear it's not really a request.
No, like an expectation.
Right. And this is where the missionary, the strategy coordinator, encourages her. He says, look, this could be a huge opportunity. The government is basically, accidentally maybe, opening a door for massive evangelism and training in restricted areas.
An unexpected green light almost. A key moment of seeing opportunity in a strange request.
So she agrees. Her church partners with the strategy coordinator, and they set up this discipleship training center, the DTC, in June 93.
They get prayer support going, bring in Mandarin-speaking trainers from elsewhere.
And at first class, the conditions sound really rough. Over 100 village leaders, many didn't even have their own Bibles.
Sleeping on benches, floors, relying on local church members for food. Pretty basic.
And the schedule. Intense. Genesis, life of Christ, Romans, Jonah, Ephesians, plus how to study, how to teach, evangelism.
Packed in. 10 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 20 days straight.
Whew. You'd think people would burn out.
Apparently not. They were so eager they asked for more training, another 10 days, and the results, just 3 months later, were pretty remarkable.
Over 1,300 conversions reported, 1,200 baptisms, 3 new churches started.
Yeah. It just shows the impact of that focused training and, well, the hunger that was there.
And things kept rolling. They even got support from local officials to expand the church building at a training center. It looked like they had official backing for a while.
Yeah. But then, as often happens, the political climate shifted. A new RB director came in, someone more critical.
So things got more cautious, more secret.
Seems so. Training became more decentralized, happening more out in the villages themselves, but the movement didn't stop.
And the long-term numbers are staggering. After just 3 years, over 450 new churches planted across 3 provinces.
Wow.
Over 18,000 people professing faith. More than 500 house church leaders trained, plus another 1,000 believers.
That's incredible impact from that initial unexpected opening, a real testament to strategic partnership and focused training.
Okay, let's shift to the second case study then, the Yanyin movement. Different province, maybe 8 to 10 million people.
Right, and here in 1991, the official registered churches, the TSPM churches, they were pretty stagnant, not much growth, kind of cautious.
The TSPM, just to remind everyone, is the government-sanctioned Protestant body.
Exactly, operating under government oversight. So into this situation comes an American strategy coordinator in 91.
And he takes a different tack. He focuses on the unregistered house churches.
Which at the time were tiny, just 3 small groups, mostly older members, not much vision for multiplying.
And he realizes there are big language and cultural barriers within the province.
Yeah, so he makes a key move. He starts mobilizing ethnic Chinese Christians from other countries to come and help, people who could bridge those gaps.
And that worked.
It seems it did. The growth was, well, explosive is the only word. 6 new house churches the first year. 17 the next year, then 50 the year after that. By 1997, there are 195 house churches, spread to every county, reaching 5 different ethnic groups.
That's incredible acceleration.
And it didn't stop. Even after the coordinator left in 98, the momentum just kept building. By the end of 98, 550 churches, over 55,000 believers.
Wow.
By summer 2001, a survey finds over 900 churches, nearly 100,000 people involved. It became truly self-sustaining.
So what was driving that? What were the characteristics?
Well, a big emphasis on evangelism, both personal, one-on-one sharing, and sometimes larger campaigns, maybe using things like the Jesus film.
And they were strategic about it?
Yeah, focusing on heads of households and really leveraging existing networks, family, friends, inviting people to simple Bible studies.
And then what happened with new believers?
Quick integration, straight into basic discipleship studies, then baptism. And this seems crucial. They identified and empowered new leaders really quickly.
From within the new groups?
Yes. With mentorship from the experienced planters, rapid leadership development was baked into the model.
Which brings us to this POUCH church model the coordinator talked about. Can you break that down?
Sure. POUCH is an acronym. P is for participative Bible study and worship everyone involved.
Okay.
O is for obedience to the word as the main measure of success, not just knowledge. U is for unpaid and multiple leaders, not reliant on one professional pastor.
Right. Lay leadership.
Exactly. And CH is for cell groups meeting in homes or maybe storefronts. Small, flexible groups of 10, 20 people.
So that decentralized model was key to the rapid reproduction.
Absolutely fundamental. Think about it. Small groups, led by regular folks, meeting in homes, they can multiply way faster than building big churches and training professional clergy.
And it probably helped the security, too, being less visible.
That seems likely. The sources mention that in more established areas, churches would intentionally split and reproduce once they hit a certain size, partly for security.
And the experienced leaders would go with the new group.
Yeah, to get it started and immediately start mentoring new potential leaders within that new group. It's a continuous cycle.
And these groups met a lot.
Often, yeah, at least twice a week, sometimes daily. Sundays might be more outreach-focused, weekdays for deeper discipleship and training.
So the leadership development was just built right in.
Pretty much. The participative study, multiple leaders, mutual accountability, leaders modeling the life, it all fostered new leaders emerging constantly.
And they had other training, too.
Yeah, short-term trainers came in from outside. There were regular county and provincial meetings for prayer, fasting, more training. And this interesting cross-pollination idea.
What was that?
Leaders would visit other house churches, even in different areas, to learn from each other, share what was working. A peer learning network.
Fascinating. So the strategy coordinator drew 12 key lessons from all this.
He did. Things like the absolute necessity of prayer, the importance of leaders modeling the way, not just teaching, prioritizing applying the Bible over just knowing stuff, getting feedback on evangelism efforts, making sure everything was reproducible, encouraging local hymns and worship styles, having high expectations for new believers, getting them involved quickly.
The multiple unpaid leaders thing?
Yes, that, accountability systems, the power of meeting in homes, and maybe most importantly, local believers taking ownership of the mission themselves.
It's a really practical, comprehensive list, isn't it? Born out of that experience.
It really highlights how these adaptable, locally led strategies empowering people at the grassroots were just so effective.
So bringing this all together as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear this incredible growth in China isn't down to just one thing.
No, it's complex. You've got this amazing resilience, faith surviving, and even strengthening through intense persecution.
Which might have, paradoxically, deepened commitment and helped spread it, like we talked about earlier.
Possibly. And then you have the effectiveness of these indigenous movements led by Chinese believers themselves.
Using strategies that really fit the context, like the Beishan training or that Yanyan POCH model, adaptable, reproducible.
Yeah, flourishing in this incredibly diverse, often really difficult environment, showing amazing adaptability, understanding the local culture.
Which really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? When you consider that history, that intense hardship, and then you see these innovative, ground-up ways the church grew, what does that tell you, the listener, about faith itself?
Or about the power of community, about how ideas, how movements can spread and take root even in the most challenging places.
Lots to think about there, the resilience, the adaptability.
It's a compelling story, no doubt. Offers a real glimpse into the dynamism of faith and human resourcefulness against the odds.
Absolutely. We hope you'll reflect on these examples, these stories and strategies we've discussed today, and maybe consider what other questions this deep dive into the Well, the truly remarkable growth of the church in China sparks for you.